Benjamin Netanyahu is in a very big crisis. And what Benjamin Netanyahu did in moments of crisis before, at least in the past 17 months, is escalate, is find something to escalate. In September 2024, around September 2024, when the peak protests against Benjamin Netanyahu started to escalate even further, he decided to begin a war, a full-scale war against Lebanon, and he added another objective that is relating to Lebanon for the first time. He did that so that he can avoid pressure. The people were in the streets trying to force him to go into a deal, especially after at that time Joe Biden confirmed that Netanyahu agreed to a deal, and it was Israel delaying after he had also multiple senior figures from the war cabinet resigning after Netanyahu himself refused to get a deal for his own interests. Netanyahu escalates, and that's why Benjamin Netanyahu has multiple fronts open: Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iran. They're talking about more operations with Yemen, against Yemen. However, will Benjamin Netanyahu go on his own for an attack against Iran? Now, there was a dangerous report in one of the Israeli newspapers saying that the IDF closed the Red Squadron ahead of an attack on Iran. They're calling it drama in the Air Force. The 115th Squadron of the Air Force simulated enemy aircraft to improve the pilot's abilities. So what is this squadron exactly? We'll give you all of the details here. The squadron was closed and the aircraft and crews were transferred to operational squadrons. A force source said, "We are making adjustments in light of the changes in combat arenas." Now, this squadron was supposed to train and have simulations over all of the Israeli attacks in the region, in Gaza, in Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and also in Iran. Now, closing it, having everyone who participated in this squadron to go to the Israeli Air Force means one major thing is about to happen. Or could it mean something else? Well, the first scenario is Israel is gathering all of its forces, all of the strongest top elite people in the Israeli Air Force and the equipment and everything that they need to prepare for an all-out attack against Iran that it will take on its own. Not necessarily without the US, as a matter of fact, most likely without the US, because Trump is not interested in a war with Iran. Now, is Netanyahu capable of conducting an attack against Iran? He can. Yes, the Israeli Air Force, they have capabilities to conduct an attack against Iran. It could be catastrophic. It could be devastating for Israel. And Iran could take it down fairly easily, like they've done with True Promise 2. However, at that time, it was fully coordinated with the United States. The United States did not participate directly in the attack with Israel, but they allowed it to use Iraqi airspace that the American Air Force uses. They went and attacked from there against Iran. Shows you the level of cowardice in Israel, because they weren't really even coming close to Iran in fear of being obliterated. Now, the United States is having tensions, visible disagreements with Israel that are coming on top of the surface. They're surfacing now, all of the details. And Steve Witkoff is going to Qatar. They're having certain statements that are showing that there's a big difference between the two countries, especially in their vision for the ceasefire in Gaza and the future. Trump wants to have certain deals, and he wants to close the deal with Iran, business Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar too. Israel, however, is causing him problems now. What is sold to us, or what is sold to the people as the greatest asset of the United States in the region, Israel, is becoming its biggest liability. As a matter of fact, there's an argument that it has been its biggest liability for a very long time, and the United States isn't really supporting Israel apart for neo-colonialist purposes. Now, if Benjamin Netanyahu decides to go on a war with Iran, he can. He has the Air Force to do that. He has capabilities. But he will not necessarily get the support that he wants from the United States. Is Benjamin Netanyahu at a political level? Is he in a political situation where he feels like he has to conduct this move against Iran? That question is very serious, because if the answer to that question is Netanyahu's desperate now, then that's one of his only resorts, because it wouldn't create as much drama as him carrying out more attacks against Lebanon or in Syria or in Yemen. Why? Because in Lebanon, Hezbollah are still adhering to the ceasefire. He tried to poke them multiple times to escalate. They were not responding. Syria, likewise, he pokes them, instigate to attract a response. There is no response from Syria. In Yemen, well, they're thousands of miles away anyway, and their attacks are not dependent on Israeli borders. So there's so much drama he can have. Plus, it takes so much effort from Israel and so much money spent to go for 2,000 kilometers over Yemen, conduct attacks, and go back. Theatrical attacks. Cement and oil and whatever, something that causes fire and releases a lot of smoke and ashes. Typical garbage that Israel does, apart from massacring people and innocent civilians. Now, that is the first option. He can go there, he can escalate, but he might face a lot of trouble. He might face a lot of trouble because from an Iranian perspective, that would be the final straw. That would unleash the wrath against this genocidal, child-murdering entity once and for all, from an Iranian perspective. Or they could have a limited operation that will be very, very intense against Israel. Two options of response from Iran. Now, if Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't go on this operation, he needs to have certain sacrifices internally. He needs to have some sort of an agreement, a ceasefire, where he will not confirm that he will end the war, but he's going to do it for the sake of the US and try and protect his coalition at the same time. That's assuming that this report means that Israel wants to attack Iran, definitely. Because there is prospect. Israel has attacked Iran before. Iran has attacked Israel. All of that just happened in the past year. There's another probability here. Well, the other probability is the Israeli Air Force is in absolute crisis mode. They have reduced the airstrikes in Gaza. They're carrying out more missile, or for the first time in history, actually, missile strikes against Gaza. The letter of the Israeli pilots refusing to serve spread like wildfire. More and more people started to sign. People outright calling for rejection. Israel having an operation, a desperate operation against the Haredi community to force them to go into the genocide terror army, because all of them are either killed or lost a limb or having PTSD, tens of thousands. And there are many who don't want to fight. That could be another meaning. Why? Well, because the people in the Air Force serving now and the reservists are causing us a lot of problems. People for the first time talking about ethical reasons, even in a letter that they sent to the air commander in Israel. The air commander now has to approve every operation that Israel conducts in Gaza. And those pilots who conduct the operations, they go on social media afterwards as well to verify. I mean, to check how many children they killed, basically. But, of course, they receive targets. If they target and then they find out that this target wasn't as described, they will raise it with the commander. So it's becoming very problematic. And, of course, they're seeing all of the tensions, all of the neglect, the fact that many of the Israeli prisoners of war are killed in Gaza, and the fact that they could be killing more Israeli prisoners of war inside of the Gaza Strip. That could be the second meaning. However, what's for sure is Benjamin Netanyahu has two options in front of him now. Either go to a deal that will include the release of all of the Israeli prisoners of war, the declaration of ending the war in Gaza, alongside a long-term solution, at least for several years, or remain stubborn. Netanyahu is trying to find the middle way, having a temporary deal, pleasing his government, and trying to please the United States administration too. However, there's a problem with that. He thinks he can get away with it. He has people who are arrogant enough to think that they can dictate everything that they want in his government. The problem is the United States appears to be past that stage. That's why people in Israel who are supportive of Netanyahu are calling this a malicious attempt from Steve Witkoff. Many warmongers are unhappy about Steve Witkoff pushing for this proposal about Trump, and the United States is only looking for an all-out deal now, not any temporary deals. Witkoff told them before, you're going to pay a heavier price. More talks from the administration about ending the war. Trump himself saying all of a sudden that our Gaza needs our help, as if you weren't supporting the same man who was butchering their children. However, the main thing is Netanyahu is going to find it difficult. Netanyahu is going to find it difficult. And one of the things that Benjamin Netanyahu used to do to get himself out of circumstances like this is create an even bigger war.